Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So first of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Pranams unto the lotus feet of our most worshipful Srila Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad Shishmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Srila Guru Maharaj, to Arupanuga Guru Varga, and to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So we continue reading from Chaitanya sikshamrita. Today I was just talking to Prabhuji and I told him we are reading from Chaitanya sikshamrita. And he said, yes, this is a very good book. He's happy. He said, continue. So, you remember what was discussed yesterday? Forget now, huh? What? Yeah, there's Vidvat and Vidvat Pratiti. You remember that terms? Vidvat Pratiti, Avidvat Pratiti. What's the difference? One is proper knowledge. One is proper knowledge. Conception based on proper knowledge, that is Vidvat Pratiti. And conception based on improper knowledge, like example, what? Like based on Maya, like based on your material understanding. So that is Avidvat Pratiti. So he said, you take shelter, someone taking shelter of this Vidya Shakti, meaning someone with Sambandha Gyan, he's seeing everything according to proper knowledge. So that's Vidvat Pratiti. And someone who's seeing things according to their material senses, then what is that? That's based on Maya. So that type of understanding is what? Based on Avidvat Pratiti. You understand now? So you both can be seeing the same thing. Both can be seeing the same thing, but one with the Vidvat Pratiti, then he not really seeing properly. And one with the Vidvat Pratiti, then he really seeing. So the example is during the time of Krishna, demons see Krishna with Avidvat Pratiti. The real devotees, they see with Vidvat Pratiti. That's is understandable, no? And applicable also in this time, those are devotees, when they see Thakurji, that is Vidvat Pratiti. They have like actual vision, darshan. But materialists, then they would see the deity, their conception will be based on Avidvat Pratiti. And then therefore they will not see the deity as directly Krishna. Then what else? Where did we end? Remember? Already we entered into discussion of Vaidhi and Rag, right? Remember that? And I think this is the last point. He's saying that unless someone attains, or this Rag is awakened in one's heart, then he should follow Vaidhi Bhakti. He's saying there's only two paths, really. There's no third or fourth path with regards to Bhakti. There's only Vaidhi and Raganuga. And so Vaidhi meaning you are following what the devotees and those who have realized, what prescriptions, what advice, what like regulations that they have left for us, like that. They have realized absolute truth, and so then they're telling for the future generations, oh, you should do this, do this, do this. It's very good for you. They're writing all this in scriptures, like this. So all these rules, these are called Vaidhi. So for us, for those who has no rag, then they can follow Bhakti really by following all these rules, these prescriptions of the sadhus, like this. But when rag comes, then everything is more than, it's not anymore based on following rules. It's actually based on actual love, like that. So in Raganuga, there's really no like fixed rule. So I think that's where we stopped yesterday. So I'm just reading again, like the last part we read yesterday. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying the path of rag is completely independent. And there are no special rules or conditions governing it. Therefore, only a systematic description of the daily practice on the path of Vaidhi is described here. So now we continue. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even unfortunate people who do not believe in God follow certain rules and regulations in order to maintain themselves. You agree? He said, even unfortunate people who do not believe in God, who are they? The atheists. They don't believe in God, they're unfortunate. Even them, they follow certain rules and regulations. So then they're maintained, right? And you can see that, They may not follow rules of God or something, but they follow some rules and regulations. These rules can also be called moral principles. So now he is telling like this. However, morality, where there is no arrangement for the remembrance of Bhagavan, even though seemingly beautiful and ideal from all angles of vision, is wholly external and unable to make human life perfect and successful. You understand that? So some people, they may be atheists, and they may have that like goodness in them. So they may follow rules of morality like that. But without this, he said, no arrangement. Without arrangement for remembrance of Bhagavan, then however beautiful their ideas and whatever their desire is, they will not make life perfect. You're following? So everything is only external. Such morality is in extreme opposition to the service of the Lord. On the other hand, morality that encompasses a sense of faith and duty towards Bhagavan contains the most successful guidance for mankind. So he's saying morality that has no arrangement for remembrance of God, he said this is opposition. He said this is morality which is in extreme opposition to the service of the Lord. But morality that encompasses a sense of faith and duty towards Bhagavan, he said that contains the most successful guidance for mankind. So he said there are two types of rules and regulations to be considered in life: primary and secondary. So he said attaining love for God should be one's primary goal to life. So he's talking about in life, there are two considerations as far as like rules, rules and regulation. So he said there is really something to be considered primary and secondary. He said attaining love for God, this should be, he said this should be the primary goal of life. So this is like the primary rule. Rules that directly point one toward the attainment of this objective without diversion, they are called primary rules. You understand? So he said the actual real goal of life really is to attain love for God. So any rules and regulation that is geared towards that, attaining that goal, he said this is primary rule and regulation. Okay? And rules that approach the same goal in a more indirect manner, accepting some diversion, but possessing some intention, they are called secondary rules. Okay, so what's the difference? Primary and secondary? Yeah, the secondary is indirect. Some diversion is there. But the primary meaning directly for attainment of love for God. Okay. So we're talking about rules and regulations. Okay. An example of a secondary rule. Okay, then we can understand better. An example of a secondary rule is to take a bath daily, so that the body remains clean and free from disease. So you can see some rules like that. Even some bratas which require like this. Oh, you have to take bath. Oh, take bath early morning. Oh, take bath with cold water, like that. So he said, this is not primary, but this is secondary, because it can also help for the primary. No, this is not directly really for like attaining love of God, but by doing this, you can have a clean body. Your body will not have disease, and then you can serve. So this is like a indirect. So this is secondary rule. As a result, the mind becomes steady. When the mind is steady, worship of Bhagavan is possible. Service to Bhagavan, which is the main goal of life, is the secondary result of taking bath. Okay? You understand that? The service to God is secondary result. The first result is body becomes clean, no disease. Right? That's why you take bath. And then the secondary result is the you can worship Bhagavan nicely. That's why this is secondary rule and regulation. Example. The immediate result of such an activity is that the body becomes clean and healthy. Okay. If we think that having a clean body and bodily comfort are the main results of taking bath, we will not achieve the worship of Bhagavan. If other results obstruct the attainment of the fruit of worship, of the fruit of worshiping Bhagavan, they become obstacles. If these obstacles remain or other causes intervene, then the attainment of the main goal will be obstructed. He said the direct result of the primary rules is the worship of Bhagavan. Okay, so the desire to taste secondary fruits should not come between the rules and the worship of the Lord. Are you following that? There's a direct result, and then there will always be some secondary results, right? So when we talk about the primary rules, there are actually rules and regulations that is directly, it will have a result of like worshiping Bhagavan. And he said there will be some secondary results, but he said the desire to taste secondary fruits, they should not come between the rules and the worship of the Lord. Hearing Harikatha or performing Hari Kirtan is the primary rule. Okay, so why is this primary rule? Hearing Harikatha and performing Hari Kirtan. Yeah, because directly it makes you, it's like directly it's a worship of Bhagavan. So he said, although, he said, hearing Harikatha or performing Hari Kirtan is the primary rule, because its direct result is the worship of Bhagavan. Okay, that's clear. Although Hari Bhakti is the primary rule, unless the secondary rules are also followed, then one cannot maintain one's life properly. And such negligence may even lead to death. You're following? So, okay, the one is you follow like primary rules. But sometimes you can say you cannot neglect secondary rules because they're important. Like that example, like taking care of the body, like whatever rules are there to take care of the body, like that. So if you neglect that, then it says you are unable to maintain your life. If we are unable to maintain our lives, then it is impossible to cultivate the primary rule, right? Which is Hari Bhajan. So the intention of adhering to the secondary regulations is to accept the so-called ornaments of human life, such as material education, technology, industry, civilization, order, perseverance, bodily and mental maintenance, and social rules, and use them to help one engage in a simple and natural way in the service of the feet of the Lord. You're following? You're following? So these are the fields of, like when you talk about secondary rules. He said the intentions of following secondary regulations is to accept the so-called ornaments of human life. Meaning what? Like he said, education, technology, industry, civilization, order, bodily, mental maintenance, all these things which are like helpful. They can be used for your engagement in the service of Bhagavan. Like for example, Varnashram. You know, like Varnashram, this is actually like a karma kanda like system. This is based on body. Like, you know, if you're a grihastha, like, you follow all these rules like that. If you're, and according to your varna, there are rules that you follow like this. So there's a purpose for that. There's a purpose for following this. The primary rule, it should not be should not be forgotten, that is to serve Bhagavan. But like, let's say if you're a householder, you do all your duties. Mainly householder, they're serving family and like that. So that's their like primary. But for the devotees, they're doing this because ultimately it will help them, you know, for like having a Krishna conscious family, and then they can worship Bhagavan nicely like this. So similarly, like the example, like health, then you don't get sick and you can serve. So he said, by following the primary rules, and which is Hari Bhakti, human beings achieve supreme bliss in the stage of practice and at the stage of perfection. Both in the stage of practice and the stage of perfection, they're happy if someone is following the primary rule. Now, take note, we're talking about these rules and regulation because we are in this subject matter on Vaidhi, following rules. So he said, this happens through the mercy of our presiding goddess, Sri Radha, and by tasting the nectar of her lotus feet. There are many stages of human life. Okay. So there's the primitive life. Primitive life, that means uncivilized. Yeah? Uncivilized. Then there's the civilized life. Then he said life equipped with material sciences. Then atheistic moral life. Then theistic moral life. Then life endowed with Vaidhi Bhakti. And life endowed with Prema Bhakti. So he's telling all these different stages. So how many are there? First, the primitive life, civilized life, life equipped with material sciences, then atheistic moral life, then theistic moral life. What would be the difference there? They're following some morality, but the other one is they're atheistic. They don't believe in God. The other one is their morality is actually based on their like appreciation of God. Then higher than that, higher than theistic moral life is life endowed with Vaidhi Bhakti. Okay. Then after that, life endowed with Prema Bhakti. But he said, so these are the different stages. He said, but real human life begins at the stage of theistic morality. So meaning, what is before theistic morality? Atheistic morality. He said that is not really like human life yet. So that leaves us only, when you really consider as far as like human life, that leaves only how many stages? That's the theistic moral life, then life endowed with Vaidhi Bhakti, then life endowed with Prema Bhakti. So he said, life without theism or devotion, no matter how developed it may become in terms of civilized manners, material science, or morality, that can never really become superior to life of animals. You're following? When you say something is not superior to life of animals, that means it's equal to animal life. It cannot be superior to animal life. So what is that? He said life without theism or devotion. Okay. So you may be like in that stage of like morality, but really without acceptance of God, then no matter how much technological progressive you are or whatever, then it's not that life is really animal life. Civilization, materialistic science, and morality are the main ornaments of a moral theist's life. Understand? Why are they considered ornaments? Like ornaments are there. They're like they make something beautiful, but they're still not really needed. You can live without ornaments. Like someone, that you can have earrings and bangles and all these ornaments, but really you can also not have that, and you can still be alive, right? But if you have that, then you become attractive, like this. So he's saying all these things: civilization, materialistic science, and morality, even morality, they are main ornaments of a moral theist's life. How a successful moral theist, endowed with all these ornaments, may develop so as to become a devotee, and thus make his life complete, are matters explained throughout this entire book. So now he's telling how a theist, meaning someone who believes in God, how someone who believes in God, with all these ornaments, how they can, he said, I'm going to repeat it again. He said, how a successful moral theist endowed with all these ornaments may develop so as to become a bhakta, and thus make his life complete. These are the matters explained throughout this entire book. Okay. So meaning how you progress, okay, from that stage of moral theist to an actual bhakta. The very life of the soul, or the jiva, or more specifically, the function of the soul. What is that? Jaiva Dharma. Is religion. So here we're given the definition of religion. Religion, this is the function or the life of the jiva. In the human stage of life, such real spiritual life, meaning we're talking about religion as the real spiritual life, Jaiva Dharma, is called the religion of mankind, Manava Dharma. That religion is of two types, primary and the primary, otherwise known as pertaining to one's spiritual identity, and secondary, also known as sambandhik, that which is in relation to this world. This secondary type of dharma is material and takes shelter of material qualities, and its relationship is with matter. You're following so far? Okay, when we talk about religion, he said this is the real life of the jiva. And really, what is it that is, we're talking about, what is the real religion of the jiva? Yeah, what is Jaiva Dharma? Really, in reality, prem, ultimately, that is the real life of the jiva, the pure life. When you are in your real condition, then that is your life, service to God, having this kind of love, pure love, prem. Okay, so he said, this is also called Manava Dharma, religion of mankind. So in Jaiva Dharma, the book Jaiva Dharma, there's a discussion, no? Like, when you say Jiva Dharma, that's not just human beings. That includes animals and trees and like that. So when you say Prem, why only like limit it to human beings? And you say Manava Dharma. When you say Jaiva Dharma, that should be like for all, not just human Dharma. What's the answer? Yeah, because like really, unless you're a human being, like it's not possible for you to engage in this religion. Like practically impossible, unless there's very like direct mercy of Bhagavan. If you're a tree, you cannot do bhajan, and that's why here already he's saying there are levels of like human life, right? So it starts with first uncivilized, then civilized, then after that, what's after civilized? Like scientific, like you have technology and like this. Then after that, moral atheist, moral atheist. No, then after that, moral theist. So now, so higher than just having all these facilities like technology and everything, but they're atheistic. Higher than that is still atheistic, but they're moral. They're following some certain rules. But here he's saying that actually even in that stage, you cannot be considered human being. Like this. So until you reach the stage of moral theist, that you have some conception of God, and like you have that purpose, that my purpose is to know, and love Him, like that kind of conception. Okay, so he said actually human life begins there. So therefore, from that point, then there's the conception of service to God. Only when you're in that level, then you can engage actually in some degree. It may not be pure, but some degree of the actual like dharma, the actual dharma of the jiva. And therefore, they use the term Manava Dharma, like the dharma of the humans. So he said that this Manava Dharma, there are two types. There is the primary and the secondary. So when you say primary, he said that is really pertaining to one's real swarup, the spiritual identity. And the secondary is in connection to the material world. Okay, so let's understand more. He will explain with examples, then we can understand. So he's saying it is nothing but a material transformation of the primary dharma mixed with material nature. What is that? It is nothing but a material transformation of the primary dharma mixed with material nature. This is what? The secondary. When freed from material qualities, this Jaiva Dharma, which is supremely pure, then becomes the primary Dharma. The Gona Dharma may also be said to have material identity or designation, but once freed from those designations, it becomes Mukhya Dharma, or the primary Dharma. This primary Dharma is the factual religion of the soul. The performance of pious activities and the avoidance of sinful activities are known as secondary rules. And both are included within the secondary Dharma. Okay, so now, to make us understand more, then we look at this example. Performance of pious activities. Okay, so, and also performance of pious activities and avoiding sinful activities. Okay, he said these are known as secondary rules. Why are they secondary rules? Yeah, they're not directly in relation to service of God, But, yeah, because when you say pious activities, that's a service to maybe other people. When you say sinful activities, that means you're harming maybe other people. It's not directly for Bhagavan. So they are secondary rules. And so these secondary rules, these examples of secondary rules, these are included within the secondary dharma. Secondary dharma. What is again secondary dharma? This religion based on the material world. Like, this is not in relation to real swarup. Naimitic. Yeah, so you understand? Because really, if you look at this, sins and all these pious activities, that is in relation to the material world. You know, direct. What is an example of direct dharma, like the primary dharma? Bhakti. You know, like bhakti means beyond this world, meaning in the eternal spiritual world, these activities are going on there. Okay, you understand? The soul cannot reject the secondary dharma. Rather, in the stage of freedom from the material modes of nature, this secondary dharma becomes transformed into primary dharma. Is that understandable? He's saying that, like, really, now, especially now, we are conditioned jivas. So you cannot reject the secondary dharma. You know, you cannot reject, like, okay, not doing sinful activities. You cannot reject this. You may say this is naimitic. This is in relation to the material world, but you cannot reject that. But he said, but when you become liberated, when you come to the stage of freedom from the material modes of nature, meaning that means, okay, you're not anymore of this world. You attain your swarup, or you maybe become like a resident of Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. At that time, your activity now naturally becomes transformed to primary dharma, because that's like the eternal activities. So whether you're helping somebody, like this, so that's not just pious activity. It's not just a secondary dharma. That's already related to your actual service to Bhagavan, which is mukhya. We will examine the secondary rules concerning prescriptions and prohibitions, and then the primary rules, and finally, the perfected stage of this Jaiva Dharma, which is Prema Bhakti. Okay, so now he's saying, okay, so don't worry, now we're introducing this, secondary and primary. Said, we will discuss this one by one. We will examine, he said, we will examine the secondary rules, this Gona Dharma, secondary Dharma, and then after that, we examine the primary, and then the perfected stage, which is Prema Bhakti. So he said, in this stream, he's talking about this chapter, because a chapter is considered like a stream, and there are chapters in a section of the book. A section is called a rainfall, like that, and that's how he divides the topics. So he said, in this stream, the absolute truth has been called by 3 different names. And what are they? He said, Ishvara, Bhagavan, and Krishna. The reader should understand that these names do not refer to 3 separate individuals. Are you following? So here, he said, in this chapter, you can hear 3 names. There's Ishvara, there's Bhagavan, and Krishna. He said, but don't think that they refer to 3 different personalities. Why? Because they're all the same. No. So the reader should understand that these names do not refer to 3 separate individuals. Sri Krishna is the one and only supreme complete reality, and the only object of the jiva's pure love or prem. Sri Krishna is the fullest and sweetest manifestation of Bhagavan. When considering Sri Krishna in relation to other objects, we see him in the form of what? Ishvara. So Ishvara means, what is the meaning of Ishvara? Controller. Ishvara means the controller. So he said, when considering Krishna in relation to other objects, then you see him as the controller. So he's called Ishvara. So in this stream, we have discussed these 3 categories as subject matters, and often use the term Ishvara instead of Krishna. You're following? So in this chapter, then you will see all these names, any of these three. So, and because he's referring to Krishna as the controller, then he's called Ishvara. But that's actually referring to Krishna. So he said, we have discussed these three categories as subject matters and often use the term Ishvara instead of Krishna. This is because we have been discussing in particular his role in regards to his creation. The term Ishvara is referring to none other than the Supreme Reality, Sri Krishna, and is describing him in terms of his natural and perfect feature of controlling everything. So he's in control of everything. So he is Ishvara. In an extensive analysis of philosophical truths, the term Ishvara is most commonly used in this regard. Okay, so in extensive way, this is the most broader term. This is like more the generic name. So we use the word Ishvara. It is most commonly used in this regard. Ishvara is the controller of both the Chit and the Achit. So remember, there's three Vastus. Three Vastu. There's Ishvara, and then there's the Jiva and the Jar, or the Chit and the Achit. The Chit meaning the conscious Jivas, and then the Achit meaning material, like this. So when you talk of Ishvara, he is the controller of both Chit and Achit. So we finished that first, the introduction. There's all these footnotes here, which I will skip. So now we go to the second stream. The teachings of Sri Caitanya Dev. In order to know the process of devotion as delineated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is necessary to examine the book Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. Okay, so now we're studying Chaitanya sikshamrita. So when we say Chaitanya sikshamrita, these are teachings of Mahaprabhu, nectarian teachings of Mahaprabhu. But he's saying, but in order to know the process of devotion, exactly as what Mahaprabhu taught. He said, very important, it is necessary you examine Chaitanya Charitamrita, because everything actually is there. Without Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll never know, really. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally composed 8 verses, known as what? What's the name? Shikshastaka. There are no other books authored by Mahaprabhu. Only in an anthology of poems written by Rupa Goswami called Sri Padyavali can we find 1 or 2 other verses composed by Mahaprabhu. 1 or 2 small books have manifested, which are said to have been written by Mahaprabhu. However, after deep and careful deliberation, it has not been possible to establish their authenticity. You're following? So, there's no doubt, Mahaprabhu has written or spoken this Shikshastakam. And he said, you may find some other verses that he said Mahaprabhu himself also wrote or have spoken. And you may see 2 or 3 verses, and where? In Rupa Goswami's collection. Rupa Goswami has this Padyavali, which are collection of prayers. He actually collected from everywhere. Then there you may find some directly Mahaprabhu, he said, quoted or written those verses. He said later on, there's 2 books that some people will say Mahaprabhu wrote. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, if you really examine, you'll find that it's you cannot find proof that really Mahaprabhu wrote these books. You cannot establish their authenticity. So the followers of Mahaprabhu, namely the Goswamis, have composed many literatures in which we find the teachings of Sriman Mahaprabhu given in a most extensive manner. But nowhere in these books has it been mentioned that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu authored any books. Okay, so who are the ones that like taught like the teachings of Mahaprabhu, and have written like many books extensively? Who? The six Goswamis. Huh? But he said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that anywhere in all these writings, you will not find they have written that Mahaprabhu has written a book or has written books like that. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, composed by Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj, is an authoritative book containing a concise and appealing description of the character and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The teachings and philosophical conclusions of Mahaprabhu presented therein have been established as authentic, having been verified by the writings of other Goswamis. Okay, so, and if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you may, doubting people, they may say what's the proof of all this, So then you will find that they are always consistent to the writings of our Goswamis, like this. Many verses also there, they are from Srimad Bhagavatam, like this. So he's saying, the teachings and philosophical conclusions of Mahaprabhu presented therein have been established as real, as authentic. And they are verified by the writings of the Goswamis. As a result, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is greatly respected. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj appeared some years after the disappearance of Sriman Mahaprabhu. But many of Mahaprabhu's direct disciples, such as Sri Rupa Goswami and Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, offered assistance to Sri Kaviraj Goswami in writing this book. Yeah. So, like Chaitanya Bhagavat also, like many things are written about Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Who wrote that? Vrindavan Das Thakur. But he was not there in those pastimes. But he is disciple of Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda giving him all like blessings. He was able to write. Now, as far as Krishnadas Kaviraj, he was not there also during these pastimes. He appeared after Mahaprabhu, like later. He's very young. But where did he get help? Then the Goswamis helped them. Rupa Goswami, especially Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami, he was with Mahaprabhu for 16 years in Jagannath Puri. He had the most years association with Mahaprabhu, and he's directly with Swarup Damodar, who is like the second body of Mahaprabhu. So Swarup Damodar himself, he has like a diary of what all these pastimes of Mahaprabhu. So that those things are with Raghunath Goswami. So when later on Raghunath Goswami was staying in Radhakund, then he would be speaking sometimes 3 hours, like every day. This was the suggestion of Sanatan and Rupa. You're very lucky you have association with Mahaprabhu. You can speak about them. So every day he would speak 3 hours, speaking about Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So Krishnadas Kaviraj, he got all this information from him. So he's saying, previously, Srila Kavi Karnapur had written Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka, and Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur had composed Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, both of which helped Srila Kaviraj Goswami to compose his book. So this Chaitanya Charitamrita also helped, was helped by these two books, by Kavi Karnapur and Vrindavan Das Thakur. After reviewing these two books from all perspectives, it was obliged to refer to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. What does that mean? After reviewing these two books from all perspectives, he said after reviewing all these two books from all angles, all perspectives, I was obliged to refer to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, what does that mean? When you say obliged, what? like he had to do. It's like he had to. Huh? Like when you read something, then you want to know more. So some of this information are there already presented in these two books, Chaitanya Bhagavat and this Chaitanya Chandra Udaya Nataka, like this. But of course, very nice, but more. But then he found Chaitanya, and really there you'll find what is not in these two other books. So he said, he was obliged to refer to Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because one also, this Chaitanya Charitamrita get also some information from these two books. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained in religious household life until the age of 24. So he was Grasta for 24 years now. He spoke the glories of Harinam wherever he went and to whomever he saw. By speaking these glories in the courtyard of Srivas Thakur's house, by the bank of the river Ganges, at his school, and even door to door, he taught the necessity for the jivas to congregationally chant the name of Sri Hari. So, okay, that is in his household life. In that first 24 years, what was his activity? Like Harinam Sankirtan. And where do you find that? Like there, door to door, or wherever he's speaking, and mostly in Srivas Angan, where they do their Harinam Sankirtan. Okay, that was his main activity, like this. After 24 years, Sri Mahaprabhu accepted the sannyas, renounce order. We can find the complete and factual teachings of Sriman Mahaprabhu in the instructions that he gave to Sri Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and others in Sri Jagannath Puri, Sri Rai Ramananda in Vidyanagar, Sri Venkata Bhatta and Sri Gopal Bhatta in South India, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghupati Upadhyay, and Sri Vallabhacharya at Prayag, and Sri Sanatan Goswami and Sri Prakashananda Saraswati at Varanasi. Based on all these instructions, I have compiled his teachings. Okay, so here now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he's telling this. It's a big claim to say these are the teachings of Mahaprabhu. So then the very first thing you should show is like where I am getting all these teachings. Like what is my reference? And that's very important. And it's actually, this is like proper practice. Like sometimes there are some authors, they write books, but then they're only copying from somewhere, and they don't give any reference. It's only like etiquette, someone explained like this, like say Gurudev explained very nicely according to like his realization, and then later on you find, oh, very nice, you copy this whole thing of Srila Gurudev, then you make a book under your name, right? And you copy word for word, paragraph like this, putting in your book, and you don't mention Gurudev name like this. You think it's good etiquette, like that. It's very bad, like this. And sometimes like some devotees are careless, you're not, but we have to, you see, by example, they're like this, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur showing, he's making this book, and he said, these are the teachings of Mahaprabhu. And the very first thing he's showing is that where this all teaching is coming from. He's giving proper reference. Oh, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will see like this. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, then you will see, in householder life from Mahaprabhu, there you can see what his activities. There you can see his teachings. Then when he took sannyas, then these are the things from his meeting with Rai Ramananda, from his meeting with Rupa Goswami, from his meeting with Sanatan Goswami, like all these different events. He's showing, in here you will find all these teachings, like that. So then he said, now I'm compiling all this, and that's how I made this book, like this. So because it's very embarrassing, you may present like your own book. Then later on, people will say like, "Wow, this is copied word for word in another book," like that. It will just make a very bad reputation for you. So, like for us, we have our publication. We should be very careful not doing like this. Like especially those working with books, like there's no harm. You can copy it, but you just put like reference. This is from Swami Prabhupada's like commentary. Like this, and then it's very good. Then people will see, oh, like he has this idea that he's showing is what Prabhupada like. Then they will not even question. They will accept. Oh, Prabhupada said like this. But you like hide where it's coming from, and one is like a breach of etiquette like this. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the pure Jaiva Dharma, which is also known throughout India as pure Vaishnava Dharma. Sometimes he would personally preach, and at other times he sent preachers to accomplish this task. These associates were empowered with unlimited potency, and he sent them to preach in various places throughout North and South India. Without any desire for salary or reward, bound only by the loving thread of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prem, these empowered associates taught freely according to his wishes. The character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was exceedingly radiant, and his conduct was perfect. If a preacher's character and conduct are imperfect, it is not possible for him to teach pure transcendental dharma. You're following? Mahaprabhu's teaching also very high, like very high. And especially he's talking about this love of the gopis and like this. If you're not, like Mahaprabhu is showing, this love of the gopis, for many people, they would consider it even like with what kind of pratiti? Avidvat, with avidvat pratiti, we hear about pastimes of Radha Krishna or with the gopis, always with material conception, with avidvat pratiti. Then you will think this is like like mundane activities, like those lovers and like sense enjoyers and having many ladies and like that. But Mahaprabhu is showing with what kind of pratiti, the vidvat pratiti, with actual knowledge, that someone who is qualified to speak and explain about this is like really someone whose life is very pure. So Mahaprabhu himself, he's sannyasi. How can a sannyasi speak about like all this like love between like man and woman like this? So even from the very beginning, who spoke this Bhagavatam? If this is subject matter about like like mundane love between, like in this world, like love between man and woman, who spoke this Bhagavatam? It's not like some womanizer, like this. They're spoken by one brahmachari. Who? Sukadev Goswami. Very like strong brahmachari, and he's speaking to where? To whom? To the sadhus, like this. So then how you can think like that? Like, oh, this subject matter is, like low subject. This is very high subject matter. Someone like very strong brahmachari is speaking like this to sadhus, like this. So Mahaprabhu also, now speaking this, he himself is showing, he even give up household life. He's sannyasi, like this. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's saying that these teachings of Mahaprabhu are very high. Anyone who is impure, they cannot teach this. You have to have like really pure life, like this. So you can say in the character of Mahaprabhu, his conduct is perfect. He was always radiant, like this. So any preacher whose conduct is imperfect, he's saying it is impossible for you to teach this pure transcendental dharma, like this. So in present times, we see that salaried people are attempting to preach. What does it mean, salaried people? Yeah, they're paid. Some people are paid. So they are attempting to preach, but they're paid. So we said, but the fruit of their preaching is not as it should be. Whatever the result is not really the ideal result, like that. Meaning, you can speak Bhagavatam, you can speak about Mahaprabhu, but if you're just like a professional preacher, you're doing that as a means to get money, then that activity is contaminated. It will not bring the actual like ideal result, like this. And like I've seen, they have, I mentioned this before, they have some signboard. Sometimes you walk around here in Vrindavan, like near ISKCON, then you can see some signboards there. So like, learn to maintain your life by Bhagavatam. So they give like seminars how to give Bhagavatam, and in this way, you can be paid nicely. Because like, yeah, it's a good, like good way to earn money. Some, they receive lakhs of rupees because they give this Bhagavad Sapta. 1 week, they're giving a Bhagavad Sapta, and very nice. Like, like they get so much, not just gifts, but actually the organizers, they give many good donations. So then you can see some people, nicely, they're learning all this, like, how to speak the Bhagavatam. And like very nice also. Some are like very nice, and they have all these professional singers, and in between the nice discussion, then all this nice kirtan, and everyone dancing, everyone happy like this. But he said they're paid. So okay, maybe something good there, but it will not make the actual like pure result. So this is established by the following verses from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. E panchatattva rupe Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna nama prem diya, jiva koilo dhanya, mathurate pathaila rupa sanatana, dui senapati, koilo bhakti pracharana, nityananda gosani pathaila kuradeshe, teho bhakti paracharilo asesha vishese. Apani dakshina desha harilo gamana, grame grame koilo Krishna nama pracharana. Setubanda patyanta koila bhaktira prachar Krishna premadhiya koila sabara nishtar. So this is from Adilila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhaktivinoda Thakur quoting this, we're reading translation. He's saying the original Supreme Person, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his associates appeared as the Panchatattva. So everybody knows the Panchatattva, no? Why Panchatattva? There's 5 truths. They're considered like one. They're like one unit. You cannot separate them. But within that, there are 5 truths there, 5 principles. So that means who's in the Panchatattva? That means Mahaprabhu and all his associates. Sometimes we only think, okay, who are the Panchatattva? Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas. So sometimes we think only Srivas. Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, that's the 5th. The devotees headed by Srivas. Srivas the leader. So the devotees, they're part of the Panchatattva. So all Mahaprabhu's associates, they're part of the Panchatattva. Like this. So he said the original Supreme Person, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his associates appeared as the Panchatattva. He appeared himself in the form of Bhaktarup, the devotee. Sri Nityananda is Bhakta Swarup. Advaita Acharya as Bhakta Avatar, and his devotees like Srivas Thakur and other devotees, they are the Bhakta. And his devotional potency in the form of Gadadhar Pandit is the Shakti, Bhakta Shakti. Okay, so I have explained this before, but just like maybe good to explain again. What's the difference between Bhaktarup and Bhakta Swarup? Why Mahaprabhu is Bhaktarup and Lord Nityananda is Bhakta Swarup? You remembered what's the difference? Why is Mahaprabhu Bhaktarup and Lord Nityananda is Bhakta Swarup? So what's the difference? First, know the difference, Rup and Swarup. The Rup is the form, and that's only the form. The Swarup is actually the person, the personality. You know. So, in this world, actually, Rup and Swarup can be different. Hmm? So now, your Rup now is this body, right? But when you talk about your Swarup, it may not be like how your body looks like. You understand? So like some people, they have the Rup of, just to give an example, you call someone on the phone. You don't see their form, but while speaking to them, some idea of their Swarup is there. Oh, very nice, like that. And then you think of their Rup to be very beautiful because it's nice voice and like that. But later on, when you see them, like so ugly, like this. You know, and like that. And actually, there's like that. Like some of these DJs on radio, like they sound so like big and like that. You know. But then later on, when you look at them, they're actually small and like ugly, like this. So some also their Rup, they may have the Rup of a woman, but they feel their Swarup is man, like this, like this. You know, so their personality is like that. They want to enjoy as a woman, but their Rup is a man, like this. So they're like that. And like for us, we tell you are not the body, because you are not your Rup. Your Swarup is actually, we don't know our Swarup until we know our real like identity. Then we know our Swarup. So in the material world, Jai Sri Radha Vinod Bihari Juki Jai Lalita Vishaka. So, but in the spiritual world, really the Rup and the Swarup are the same. Then we say, in everyone in their the body is the person. Yeah, Krishna is his body. You know, Rupa Manjari is her body, like that. You will not have a female form if your Swarup is not like female. You understand? So there's like is absolute there. Now, so okay. Considering that, it said Mahaprabhu is Bhakta Rup. Why? And Lord Nityananda is Bhakta Swarup. So this is very important to understand. Why? Now Mahaprabhu, he has the form of a devotee. You know, Bhakta Rup meaning he appears in the form of a devotee. But we know Mahaprabhu is not a devotee, right? He is Bhagavan. He is the enjoyer. When you talk about Bhagavan, the enjoyer. So, a devotee is not enjoyer. The devotee is servant. Right? Okay. Now, Mahaprabhu is now appearing as a devotee. But if you really understand the purpose of Mahaprabhu appearing as a devotee, it's really for his enjoyment. You know, he's a supreme enjoyer. He sees that, Radha is enjoying so much loving me. You know, like that. Like, she's mad by, tasting this like sweetness in me. So I want also to enjoy that way, like that. So then, really, he is the enjoyer. He wants to enjoy this. So now, coming as a devotee is there really in that mood as the enjoyer. So he's only appearing as a devotee, but really he's the enjoyer. And acting as a devotee, experiencing so much love, then he's enjoying so much, like this. So that's why he is only Bhakta Rup. Now, if you consider Lord Nityananda, who is Lord Nityananda? He is Baladev. Now, it is said Baladev and Krishna really no difference, because they're both are God. But you have to understand, Baladev is coming from Krishna. He's the very first expansion of Krishna. But there's some difference now. There's no difference, but there's some difference. And what is the difference? His appearance and his mood. He's also God, but there's some difference in appearance. Why? Because Krishna appears like dark, Shamasundar. Baladev appears what? What's his appearance? His white. Now, what is his mood? His mood is, I am servant. See, and this is the swarup of Baladev. He is God, but he is in that mood that I am servant. And that's why he is considered the original guru. Because he is the one, he is Krishna, but he is the teacher, how to serve. Like this. And how Baladev is serving? He's serving by providing everything in existence. Right? So he's the first expansion of Krishna, and from him everything manifests. Vrindavan, okay, not just Vrindavan, everything in Braj. All the cowherd boys, the cows, the trees, all the associates, they are coming. Otherwise, if not, then how pastimes can happen? Like this. So even Nanda Baba, they're coming from Baladev. Even some gopis are coming from Baladev. But there are Radharani not coming from Baladev. Radharani is original Shakti of Krishna. Okay. And there are direct expansions of Radharani, meaning you call the Kaya Vyuha. So they are directly Chit Shakti. They are not coming from Baladev Prabhu. They are all coming from Radharani. Okay. So there are gopis coming directly from Radha. But there are also gopis coming from Baladev. Like this. Like of course we know directly his Shakti. Who is that? Ananga Manjari. So she is not coming from Radha. Although she is the younger sister of Radharani, she is coming from Baladev, Gopi. So anyway, so his mood, his very swarup is servant. So what is that? Servant. That's the swarup of a devotee. That's the swarup of a devotee. So as Nityananda, he by swarup really is a devotee. So that's why Lord Nityananda is Bhakta Swarup. Okay. Mahaprabhu, his real Swarup is enjoyer. And he's coming in the roop of a devotee. But really, as a devotee, he is enjoyer. Like that. Therefore, he's only Rupa. He is only devotee as Rup. Okay, so that's the difference. Huh? Bhakta Rup and Bhakta Swarup. Now, Bhakta Avatar, that's Advaita Acharya. And why is that? Because he is Mahavishnu. And he came as an avatar in the form of a bhakta. Like this. So, by distributing the holy name of the Lord, Krishna, everywhere, to invoke Krishna Prem, they made the whole universe fortunate. So, this is one thing to appreciate. They made the whole world, not just the whole world, the whole universe, lucky. Why? How? Not because they establish one temple, or they give them some cloth, or they give them something to eat, they perform miracles like that. How the world became lucky is because they said they distribute the prem of the holy name to everyone. Like this. So he said, they distributed the holy name of the Lord everywhere to invoke Krishna Prem. Okay. They distribute the name, and in this way, everyone got Krishna Prem. Okay, so by that, then the universe became fortunate. In order to distribute the prem of the holy name to everyone, he sent Sri Nityananda Prabhu to Bengal and his two commanders-in-chief, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, to Mathura. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, how Mahaprabhu, how this Mahaprabhu and associates distributed prem. One thing Mahaprabhu himself doing also, no? But he said, especially when Mahaprabhu left, or at that time when he was not preaching, he was just in Puri. What did he do? He sent Lord Nityananda to Bengal. So it was Lord Nityananda and then the Dwadasa Gopal, his associates. They're the one distributing prem. You can read about this in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So amazing. Like this. Lord Nityananda would only do kirtan, and he would, shoot. He said, prem drishti. He's shooting prem glances. And then they have prem. Like this. Everyone. And they'll just be absorbed in prem. 3 months, nobody eating, no sleeping, like this. They're just mad in praying, like that. Lord Nityananda dancing, and then he would say to everyone, dance, and then they have praying, dance, they're dancing, like that. So that's how Lord Nityananda is doing. Also, his associates, the same, like Abhiram, he has a whip. He would just hit you with his whip, and then you'll have praying. So that's one way. Oh, Lord Nityananda, he was sent to Bengal. But who else? The Goswamis. Rupa Sanatan, he sent to Mathura, and here to Vrindavan. Oh. So he said, these personalities extensively taught the science of pure devotion in their assigned areas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally preached the holy name of Sri Krishna in every town and village in South India, from East India right down to the southernmost tip of Rameshwaram, and delivered everyone by giving the wealth of love of Krishna. So Mahaprabhu himself doing, like when he went to South India, that was the time like this. So we stop here. Now it's 1 o'clock. We stop here, we continue. Next would be, he's summarizing essence of Gaur's teachings. Okay? Jai Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sri Caitanya sikshamrita ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Jai Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai, Shri Brajendra Nandan Shyama Sundar ki jai, Shri Vishabhanu Nandini Radha Kurani ki jai, Lalita Vishakha Devi ki jai, Shri Bhaktivinoda Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai.